Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. Welcome to another installment of what the streets call Big Time Tuesday here at the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Morning Forum, live at the Belmont Regional Center, designed by the Harvey Gann right here at 700 Parkwood Avenue. The prestigious, again, Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Morning Forum, serving Charlotte as a premier source of information for over 50 years. My name is Winston Robinson. I am a facilitator, along with co-facilitators, Ms. Laura McClellan, Ms. Carlini Ivory Canty, Ms. Jackie Edwards Walton, our timekeeper, Ms. Natalie McElrath. Let them see your signs, Ms. Natalie. That's right. We'll stop you cold in your tracks. Ms. Mary Johnson, Mr. Sheikh Abdullah, Mr. Gary Young, Ms. Jasmine Wright, Ms. Aretha Sherrill, our chaplain, our website editor and archivist, Mr. Steve Johnson, and the one-man house band, Dr. Thomas. The sultry sound in the morning. Our forum runs from 8:30 a.m. to 9:45 a.m., at which time we will pause for announcements from the audience. Announcements can also be sent to Steve at S. Johnston, that's with a T, Johnston, at TuesdayForumCharlotte.org. As is our tradition, we always open with a prayer. We will ask that Mr. Gerald Patton lead us this morning in such a service.
Good morning. It's like we're few in numbers, but you know what the word says. Where one or two are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst. So who's here today is what God intended to be here this morning. So let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you once again for this opportunity just to be in your presence, Lord. We thank you for allowing us to ride this cross this morning and allowing us to make it safely through a Labor Day holiday, all in our right minds and bottom faculties, Lord. We just thank you for this opportunity just to commune together as a community, to hear about the things that are going on. Lord, we're thankful for Mr. Britt for being here this morning to share his platform to the community, Lord. We know that he probably wrestled long and hard on deciding whether or not to run. So, Lord, we just ask that you just bless him as he presents himself up for this office, and that he remembers, keeps in mind that this is not just a leadership role, Lord, but this is a ministry that he's pursuing, Lord. God, we ask that you just continue to be with these facilitators, as we say each and every Tuesday, Lord. We just ask that you just continue to bless them, Lord, because they give freely of their time, talents, and efforts for this cause. These and other blessings we ask in your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Look, personalized, right? Look at that. Oh, man. That's the equivalent of getting hands laid on, man.
And you have been blessed. I need all the help I can.
Wow. So I heard something during prayer, which also will get me to allude to something important. Please, let's have a moment for silence. Will you take that second and silence your phone? So it won't go off while we're in prayer.
I'm easily distracted.
All right. And also, please, silence your content so we don't know what kind of crazy videos you watch. The internet giveth, I know. So again, this is a little bit of context. This was originally the forum for District 6 candidates. We sent out the invitation. We did not receive any responses, and we did one, but could not make it. And I want to, use names or give names. But so we decided to reintroduce the idea of bringing back the candidates for at-large city council who missed the forum the first time. And here we have Mr. Matt Britt, the soul of, wait a minute. How are you? I see a name tag.
She is running.
Well, come on up, look at that.
But not until
Okay.
She has no progress.
Okay.
But we should force her to sit with me so I don't have to be alone. I think I'm kidding. You're fine.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody's that.
Okay.
No. So again, at-large candidates for city council is the forum today. So Matt, you might not be along throughout the forum, but thank you for joining us and being on time. If we have anybody here for the first time, please raise your hand and acknowledge any, before we get to you, yeah, okay. Give us your name and any affiliations you'd like to acknowledge.
Fernando DuPont, I was Genesis Project, one Dr. Black and Ms. Britt.
Okay.
Today.
I appreciate you coming. Join us. We're here every Tuesday, but not next week. Yes, it's an election day.
Every Tuesday.
Well, not every Tuesday except major holidays and election days.
All right.
Please join us about 40-something, 2 Tuesdays again. Following our presentation, we will take questions from the audience. Please raise your hand and we will add your name to a list. I will call on you in the order your name was added to said list. Questions should be no longer than 30 seconds. Responses until the 9:30 mark should be no longer than 2 minutes. Questions should be questions. The answer you receive is the answer you have to accept. We do not go back and forth and we do not debate. We abide by the West Side rules of order in which it is what it is. Again, our timekeeper, Ms. Nathalie McElrath, who will signal with signs first, 30-second warning, and if necessary, times of when limits are met. We will allow you to finish your thought, but don't take the kindness for weakness of Ms. Nathalie's business. Listen, and she will use it.
I didn't know it was one of those.
Without further ado, Mr. Matt Britt, candidate for City Council at large. Please give us, and you invite no way.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I want to be fair to everybody else.
You want to stretch that out? No. 5 minutes.
That's all, we don't make,
I won't need that much.
All right, 5 minutes, Mr. Matt Britt. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Matt Britt.
I couldn't appreciate that introduction anymore. First of all, I want to say good morning.
good morning.
Thank you. As I told Mary and Jackie and Rodney as we were walking in together, I highly regret not coming to the first forum for at large, and I greatly appreciate the chance to come back today. So thank you all for having me. I remember sitting down with somebody early on when I decided to run, and them saying you got to make sure you make it to the Sarah Stevens breakfast. So I made sure I made it. So I'm here, albeit late. So I am Matt Britt, and I'm running for Charlotte City Council at large. I am proud to say that I am the son of an ordained minister and an advocate for working families. My mother did those things as I was growing up. She actually founded Crisis Control Ministries in Winston-Salem, which I have, in this process, found out is somewhat connected to Crisis Assistance Ministries in Charlotte. And very proud of the work that she did for the poor and the homeless and all the stuff she focused on over her entire career, to her detriment, to her own health and detriment, because she could never appreciate the one person in front of her that she was really helping, right? If we weren't ending homelessness, it wasn't good enough for her. And that's been a burden on her heart for many years. I am also the son of a public school champion. My dad was in the school system his entire career. He ended with being the executive director of the Centers for Exceptional Children, which was a school for emotionally and mentally disabled, physically disabled children. And he did a lot of amazing things. He also came out when I was in middle school. My parents got divorced, and my dad came out as gay. And I went through that brief struggle of what do I do with that? How do I process it? Who does that mean I am? And what does that look like? And I quickly came to the realization he's still my best friend, and some of the people that I met through him are some of the most amazing people that I've met in my life. So the couple of friends that he's introduced me to that I still keep in touch with, some that donated to my campaign this time around, even though they're in Winston. But so it's just a powerful backstory. So what I do in this run is I bring the best of both of them to Charlotte, and I combine that with my corporate experience. Neither of them had corporate experience. They were nonprofit executives. They were in nonprofit world their whole life. So I appreciate the extra perspective that I bring from a corporate sense to be pragmatic and to understand the issues in front of us. I talk often on the campaign trail of one of the things that there's many kind of moments and things since I've been in Charlotte that have connected me to the needs here for this community. But one of the things was being a soccer dad. I coached my daughter for years. And then we decided to get a real coach, somebody who knew what they were doing. And on her Charlotte Metro team, she had a young lady that I have a lot of respect for goalies. I wish I'd played soccer when I was younger. I would have been a goalie, because I did want to run up and down the field, that's for sure. But we had a goalie that we were dying to find a permanent goalie for my daughter's team. And we found this young lady, I think her name's Spiny, and she didn't speak any English, very little English. And they needed a ride. So her family was working, couldn't take her to soccer, but they wanted her to play, they wanted to invest in her. So they needed parents from the team to be able to take her home or bring her to games or tournaments sometimes. So I had to take her home this one particular time off of Albemarle Road in the Queen City, this 14th largest city in the country, this amazing city that we all know and love. And I pull into her apartment complex and I get out to help her with the bag so she can go inside and enjoy the rest of her day. The entire complex has dumpsters overflowing. And I'm not talking like packed, I'm talking like a moat around them of trash. And it just smells like a landfill. Like I got out and I'm in the middle of the parking lot. I'm 100, 200, 300 feet from any dumpster in any direction. And it smelled like landfill. I'm like, this can't be our best. This can't be what we do. So I think about this run as, that's a small example of like, there's so many things right in front of us that I think we can do better, that we can make happen, that we can make better for the city, to make Charlotte the place that you all deserve, that your families deserve, that Finey deserves, that my daughters deserve, all of it. That's where I focus. I tell people all the time, we can get more into questions. I want to hear more from y'all than I do with my 5 minutes, but I want to say 2 things that are important to me. Perfect. I want to say that I believe strongly in partnership. I'm not sure this council knows how to partner with each other very well. I think we've seen that over the last year. I think we need to figure out how to partner better together, and partner better with the school board, and partner better with the county and the state and the neighborhoods and everybody, and listen. And then the other thing that's important to me is the art of the possible. How do we hear the problems and say, well, I know the attorney said we can't do that, but why? But tell me why, and help me understand that, and how do we solve for that why? And then, okay, well, we can't go that, okay, how do we go further? I think we can find more ways to make this city better, and that's what I'm here for. So that's my intro. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Britt. I have a question myself. Let's start it off with this. Since you mentioned in your bio, I think you have a little bit of context. I went to Winston-Salem State University, so I know that there is, go Rams indeed.
Yeah.
But one thing I realized during my time at Winston-Salem State is the integration between the city itself and the institution. We're more integrated. It was interlocked. As the city became successful and saw progress, so did the institution. What would it take for our HBCU here in Charlotte, Johnson C. Smith, to see such progress as we become one of the fastest growing cities in the nation?
I love that question and appreciate the reference to Winston-Salem. Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't think I said that, but I'm a North Carolina native, born and raised in the state, but I was born in Winston-Salem and moved to Charlotte in 2019. I appreciate your question, and honestly for me, it's kind of what I talked about in the introduction. It's about partnership. As I think about this role, as I think about representing this city at large, I want to show up after the election. I don't want to be here just now, right? I may be late to the party, but I'm here now. And I want to be a part of the discussions. I want to listen. I want to understand how I can be a voice for everyone. So that includes, as I've had many discussions, I talked to the FOP, right? And I had good discussions and told them, listen, I kind of understand where Chief Jennings was coming from on this issue or that issue. I'm not going to cater to what y'all want, but I'll listen, right? Same thing with Johnson C. Smith. We need to show up. We need to have conversations. We need to be talking about how we can integrate better, how we can make those great examples like Winston-Salem be something that helps us understand how to do it better here in Charlotte. And I believe I can be a part of that. And I know we've got other great candidates that are looking to be on city council. One of them is in this room that will think the same way. How do we look at partnerships? How do we respect everyone and want to build a place where everyone belongs? Everyone feels like they're a part of the conversation. I want to do that, and I plan to have a town hall every single month on a set day and time where I move around all 7 districts. And I've also talked recently about the importance for me of, I don't want to call it a town hall, maybe it's a campfire chat, whatever it is, where we go and we sit down with the unhoused in uptown and we listen to what their concerns are, right? We have a forum with them so that we can understand how can we be better for you. Those are the kind of conversations I want to have. That's what's important to me. I didn't even talk about it.
We have a question from Mr. J. Hill.
Thank you, Winston. Hey, Matt, I'm Jay Hill. I'm from West Boulevard, Charlotte native. I've done 2 cleanups, one on Batesford Road in LaSalle, right there in the heart of Batesford Road. I've also recently done one on West Boulevard. Hearing your story about the trash in that neighborhood, I'm interested. I've talked to city officials, council members, city manager, I've talked to everybody, and I can't really get a clear answer on how you go about getting things cleaned here in Charlotte, streets and otherwise. What's your solution, and what would you do if you're elected?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jay. I think it's more, for me, being kind of new to the world, I'm not gonna have a great, direct answer for you. I haven't looked at the policy. At the end of the day, what I believe is important and what I think we need to do is making sure that we have open lines of communication and focusing on the art of the possible, right? That's where my head goes when you ask that question is, I can't take no for an answer, right? We can't work that way as a council because it's too important. I was just putting out signs last night at one of the polling locations that opened today and noticed there's trash all over the place. Do I need to start putting gloves in my car and bags? Like, what is happening? I've heard Will Russell talk about going out and doing cleanings. Like, that's great. Like, I appreciate the community stepping up, but that's a little bit insane when you think about who we are as the 14th largest city in the country. So that's important to me. That would be conversations I'd have to have with city staff to understand what the problem is, but I'm not scared to go out there and look at it and see it in person. That's kind of what I do in my work. I didn't say it, but I work for Atrium Health. I don't want to go too deep into that. That's kind of the edict I get from my team, as much as they've been supportive. But when I work in my job, I don't want to support a hospital in Stanley and never go there. I have to go and visit, right? If I want to support a hospital in Cleveland, I got to drive to Cleveland and understand what that looks like. I got to show up. So it's the same thing here. We got to show up to these places. We got to talk to the trash workers and people that are working in the disposal areas and say, what's the glitch here? What are we missing? Why aren't we running trucks that have the sweeper things everywhere, right? Like something like that. I think those options they have to be out there. I can't believe they're not.
All right, appreciate it, Mr. Britt. And that's a great segue to where I wanted to go per my question. You alluded to having a corporate background, so I wanted to go and ask if you could expound on that a little bit more and explain how that's going to correlate to you being a successful council member and or how it supports what ideas you have in order to change, not what we need to fix, but how we fix.
Yeah. I think it's a great question, and I appreciate the opportunity to expound on that a little bit anyway. So as I think about the corporate side of things, I feel like there's this notion of, particularly as I talk about my parents' experience, right? How nonprofits work and they were leading, right? They were the executive directors and they count on this thing and that thing. I think at the end of the day, the corporate world gives you some opportunity to understand process, procedure, how you work through and implement a plan in a very supported way with a large team. Like, how do you understand what the city staff are dealing with? How do you understand what corporate workers, corporate businesses are dealing with? How do you understand how the city, trash staff, how the waste disposal team works, right? There's a corporate side to that we need to make sure we understand when we're making decisions. And I think all of that experience I've had working with people, the other thing that happens a lot for me in number one, I think I bring a certain energy to every corporation that I've been in. I feel like that's what you would find if you talk to my colleagues. And I'm also the person that knows everyone on the team, right? And I don't mean when I say my direct team, I mean, they're like, wait, how do you know that person that's in this way other department that we've never talked to? Because I'm open to conversations. Because when it comes up, I'm gonna say, hey, how can I help, right? So I think that's really the benefit for me. There's probably some others I'm not articulating, but that's how I think about what that corporate experience means to me and how I combine it with the passion for servant leadership and the passion for empathy. I really hesitate, just for the record, I almost hesitate to talk about empathy because I feel like it's become such a cliche in today's politics, but I swear to you, my empathy is pure. My empathy is, I tend to put everyone else before myself. And I'm not gonna say that's always the best thing to do, but that's how I think about who I am and what I want to achieve. I really wish some of you would come up here and sit with me, just let's just form a group here. I'm in an aquarium up here.
Good morning. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, man. Good morning.
Robert Collins.
Hi, Robert.
I have a question for you. So I come every week just to give you an understanding. So I hear so many people running for council. And I want to ask you a direct question. You spoke about the young lady that you went to her place and trash was everywhere. It seemed to be a heartburn of yours when you were speaking of it. What did you do?
It's a great question. I immediately reached out to Larkin Eggleston. That's actually, because I know Larkin. Larkin, I don't know if any of you know this, Larkin actually came from Winston-Salem. And his father served on boards with my dad's for years, so I had a connection with Robert, not as much with Larkin, but we formed a connection and I kind of knew of him. I reached out to Larkin immediately, and I said, what do you do with something like that? Where do I go? And he gave me a lot of jargon. Like there was a little bit of kind of like, and I don't mean this an offense to him, just to be clear. Like it was just like, hey, you gotta reach out to this, you gotta reach out to this. It felt like a bureaucracy answer, and I was like, I don't really know what to do with that. Like I'm not sure how to process it. And if I'm being honest, I let it fall from there. So that's the honest truth. I let it fall. I knew I couldn't take it on in a sense of, going out there and picking it all up myself. That wasn't going to be very productive, right? Because it may just come back again. But I appreciate that question because I don't know that I probably didn't do enough. Although I will tell you, I'm here, right? I'm here. I'm putting myself out there. I want to solve these problems in a more holistic fashion. We can address the one piece of trash that's on the side of the road, but if we don't address it all in a holistic fashion, in a structural, institutional way, it's never going to get better. So I appreciate the question in the sense of like guilt that I have of like, God, you're right. Maybe I should have pushed a little further. But then there's also this notion of it brought me here. So right, bless the broken road that gets me to where I need to be. That's what I'm doing here. So I appreciate the question though.
Good morning, Matt. Rodney Collins.
Thanks, Rodney.
So something that always comes up during campaign cycles is public safety. With the pending retirement of the CMPD police chief, please give us your thoughts on what you would like to see in the new police chief and what you think the city needs in terms of the new police chief.
I love that question. As I mentioned earlier, I really was I felt very empowered sitting down with the Fraternal Order of Police. I assume all of you know them. I don't know how you feel about them. My understanding is that they are the union representative for a large majority of the current CMPD, and maybe not all, but most. And I think we had a healthy conversation. As I said earlier, I'm not going to be somebody who shows up and tells you what you want to hear. It would have been easy for me to tell you that I did all the right things and went down a path, right, John? Like to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is I did this, but I didn't, right? So I'm going to tell you the truth. So I said the same thing to the FOP. I said they were talking about Chief Jennings and this notion of wearing the burden that these officers have with back pain, right? It's a standard thing in corporations. People talk about corporate experience. PPE is a normal thing, right? Like how do we, personal protective equipment, how do we protect ourselves? How do we make sure we're healthy? I managed bell staff in a hotel when I was young, early in my career, and I hurt my back moving luggage because I was moving so fast, right? So like I get that, like that's hard. But they said, hey, we want this thing, and Chief Jennings said, it feels a little militaristic to me. Like I don't know that that's how I want my police force to be portrayed. I get that. I'm not gonna shun Chief Jennings for what he said there. That makes sense to me. We need to make sure that we're connected with the police. So just as an example, things like that, talking about the opportunity to create a better culture that seems to be failing in the police force, to create a better environment to fill the 600 slots that we have open. That's amazing to me that we have 600 officers that are budgeted for. They're not asking for new money. That's currently. 600 officers we need to fill now. How do we, take home cars, things like that? How do we create a world where these police officers are more respected? And listen, I'll go into nursing, I'll go into teaching, I'll go into every walk of life and tell you we need to respect more people. Bus drivers, I had a good conversation with somebody yesterday about that, a former city leader. So all of that stuff is important, Rodney. I think we need to find someone who is passionate. I personally, my interactions with Chief Jennings were pretty good. I respect him and the effort that he put forth. I think we need to find somebody just as great to step in and be not only empathetic. You and I talked about earlier. How do we walk this fine line between holding people accountable, right, and understanding that the law is the law, and we have to make sure that we're keeping people, I'm not getting the right words, but holding people accountable for the things that they do, but then walking that line of compassion. We can't do it with malice. We can't do it with hate. That's not how this is going to work. So I think that's really what we're looking for in a police chief, and that police chief also has to know how to build that culture and fill these gaps that we have. We have too many crimes happening. I've told a couple people, I totally respect the stabbing that happened in South End and got all the news on the train. And this woman, I feel for her. My heart breaks for her and her family. I don't understand who's here, who's in. I think she came from Ukraine or Russia or something like that. My heart breaks for her family. But there's people getting shot every day, right? We got other things. Why aren't we talking about any of them, right? Let's figure out how to solve this holistically and really understand what's going on and what the right answers are. And I think that's really the goal for us is to find the right way to inspire the city to be a safer place, and that police chief will play a huge part in that. I also, one other thing I do want to say, just to your credit, because we talked about it earlier, I think when we talk about partnership, the sheriff's department, I appreciated in our first conversation long ago, now feels like forever ago, the distinction between policing and sheriffing, right? I'm probably not using the right words, so forgive me, but that they're two different things, but we have to make sure we know how those groups partner together to create the best public safety opportunity for our community, for Charlotte.
All right, we have Mr. Lilly, Samir, Dr. Blanche Penn, Ms. Darnell.
Okay, my name is Mike Lilly. I had a question.
Hey, Mike.
In your conversation, you just talked about the policing stuff. It appeared you were focusing more on the community respecting the police. What's your state position on how we can get the police to have more respect for the community and the people within the community?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Mike, and I certainly didn't mean to gloss over it. I'm trying to think of all these pieces at once. But that's important to me too, right? Like I want those police. I've heard people talk about this neighborhood policing, this idea that you have a police officer that's kind of committed to your neighborhood, and so then you get to know them. I like it inherently, like it's like, oh, that's easy, yeah, that sounds good, and then I see the problems with it. So I tend to think a little deeper on things and like try and think through where's the unintended consequences, right? So I absolutely want that to be the case. I do think part of it for me, I think there's absolutely this concern we have with, and I know you all know it, but this concern we have with policing and how they connect to the community and how we're compassionate. I did talk, Mike, about compassionate, right? So we have to be compassionate to the community, connected to the community. We have to be aware. I think there's a lot of good police officers that know how to do that. But I also think for this CMPD, one of the big things for me is that culture and that environment. I don't think they feel very supported. And so as I see in my world, if you go through COVID, I think you all know this, and I'm assuming none of you were the problem, but you go through COVID, nurses hated their jobs, right? Like they always loved doing it, but there was so much malice towards them based on COVID and all the issues that people were having, that got really hard. And so that's the same thing we're seeing with police officers. How do we thank them more for their service, right? I think about that with, we do so much with the military, and I respect the military, and I want to say thank you for your service. But how do we thank police officers for their service? How do we thank nurses? How do we thank teachers? It's all the same thing. So how do we make them feel better about what they're doing so that they can also feel a little more connected and comfortable to go out there and have meaningful conversations and be respectful to communities and all that kind of stuff? It's very synergistic. But we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and I want to be part of the solution. And for me, as I think about those town halls, I want to bring officers with me every single time. How do I do that? Who do I ask? What's the path? I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm confident that's something I'll do.
All right, we have Mr. Pat.
Good morning, Gerald Pat.
Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Prior to running for public office, what actions have you taken to advance your community through activism, volunteerism, or grassroots initiatives?
I appreciate the question. So a lot of my kind of early volunteer experience, let me say this, a lot of my early volunteer experience, I shouldn't gloss over my childhood, right? So you gotta understand, when you're the son of the Reverend Jenny Britt, you're gonna show up. You're not staying home on snow days and summer days. You're gonna go to Crisis Control Ministries and you're gonna work. So I was filling bags of food for people in need, packing bags, serving them, loading the dock, doing those kind of things, right? I went to schools with my dad and was involved there I had great relationships with the teachers, and that was kind of my extended family, right? So in both of those places, I'm talking for years, that was what I did. It's just who I was and how I was brought up. So lots of things I did with my family in those early days, but as I grew, I had opportunities to volunteer later where I could. So I actually was very fortunate to be asked to serve on the board of Smart Start, and stepped in at the same time. I think they asked me to be co-chair of NC Pre-K early in my time at Smart Start. They're kind of connected, but two separate groups, and also government connected. And ultimately became the chair of Smart Start for 2 years. We had to replace the executive director during my time as chair, which was a big challenge, a emotional burden, if you will, but it was the right move. And Dr. Louis Finney is the new executive director of that Smart Start, and he's been amazing. He's been amazing in pulling that team together. So serving as the chair of Smart Start, understanding how to be, how important that birth to 8 population is, and how we need to read more to them, and how much it starts from there, right? Everything that we want to talk about, every challenge we want to talk about, if we could get people reading to their kids from birth to 8, a lot of that stuff would solve itself. So I felt very passionate about that work. And the other thing that happened during that time, I actually served this, I talk about this in my campaign, when I was on NC Pre-K, we basically had, again, just an example like the dumpsters we talked about with Finey, there were 3 different applications that these families in need for support to get their children an education at a young age, a pre-K education, 3 different applications, and they had to take them to different places. And we said, hey, we want to merge this together. We want to, I said, hey, we should figure out how to create a universal application that makes this process simpler for them. I talk about the Umbrella Center in a similar way here in Charlotte as it's in development. But these 3 different applications, I brought the school system, I brought NC Pre-K, and I brought Smart Start folks together, and they were all fighting about, well, I gotta have this, I gotta have this. I said, what, stop. I said, I don't know what y'all are talking, like, we gotta do this. Like, this has to happen. I actually lost my cool, and it might have been one of the few times in my life where losing my cool worked, because everybody said, wait a second, we gotta do this. And we got a universal application done to make it easier for people to get where they need to go, because I think the majority of our society misunderstands how hard it is for the underserved communities in our society to get places they need to go for the services that they need. So how do we combine them together? How do we make them easier? Those are the kind of things that I believe in. And then kind of jumping forward, I served on the board of Crisis Control Ministries. I was proud to do that briefly. I felt like I wasn't making an impact. And then here in Charlotte, I actually, and I've served on a lot of other chamber boards and tourism boards and these kind of things. I'm a community volunteer, I'm a servant leader by nature, but most recently serving on the board of South Charlotte Partners. So stepping into, similar to Center City Partners, University City Partners, South Park Community Partners, if you're familiar with those groups. South Charlotte Partners is advocating, celebrating, and educating on the things that affect South Charlotte. And we've done an amazing job pulling that group together and really making an impact and connecting with our community down there. So that's really one of the ways that I got more aware of what the needs are in Charlotte and what's happening with politics, because there's some really influential people on that board that I've formed great relationships with. So hope that helps.
All right, we have a question from Samir.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Matt. So as an entrepreneur in Charlotte, especially, I started out as a creative entrepreneur. The sentiment for people here is that you have to leave Charlotte to make it, quote unquote, especially amongst a lot of the creatives. There's like this aspiration about people leaving to make it bigger. We talk a lot about people coming here What will you do to ensure that we can keep our talent that's homegrown here so that our identity stays pure or at least authentic?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. Just curious, when you say creative, are we talking like graphic design? Are we talking art? Like where are you going with that?
Yeah, I mean,
All of it.
music,
Okay.
physical art,
Yeah.
digital art,
Yeah.
all of the different arts.
Well, I know we have a lot of initiatives. We actually had, oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna forget her name. I know she has, I'm not gonna remember her name. The woman who runs the art and culture for the city actually came to our second South Charlotte Partners Breakfast Club as we built that back up. Forgive me for forgetting her name in this moment. But I know that we are trying to make efforts in the city to improve arts and culture. I think about Charlotte as creative and the work that Tim Miner and his partner have done, Matt, I'm not forgetting his last name. I can't forget his first name, right?
Olin.
Oh, Matt Olin, thank you, yeah, perfect. So I got the first name right. So yeah, Matt and Tim have been amazing. I've actually, met with Tim one-on-one and been to Charlotte as creative a few times. I think we just have to continue to push to build that creative community and to empower the arts to grow here in Charlotte. And I think we can absolutely do that. It's really just about what you put your focus on, right? What you put your time into. And I think when you talk about keeping people here, I think for us, as all these people that I've worked with and been on these panels and forums with, it's about how do we make Charlotte better, right? How do we open the arteries? I know we've talked about the transportation tax. I support it, and I support it because I believe we need to open the arteries of this city, and I think this is the best thing we have in front of us right now to help open those arteries to make it a better place to be. I joke about, what is, if you've moved to Charlotte recently, like I like to be unique on this panel and say, hey, I moved 6 years ago, so when we talk about 150 people moving here every day, I know what it feels like to choose Charlotte, right? As opposed to a lot of my counterparts who have been here their whole lives. So when you choose Charlotte, what do people say to you? Oh my God, the traffic. Oh my God, the traffic. I mean, that's all they got. They don't say, oh, the food's terrible. They don't say, oh, the people, what are you going to do with them? They don't say, hey, the entertainment's bad. They don't say the Panthers stink. Maybe some do. But yeah, I mean, it's about the traffic, right? So I think we need to build a community that is more accessible from that standpoint, to get people to their works, to get people to their family, to get people to the store, whatever their errands are that they're running. And I think as we do that, I think a lot of other things fall into place. When we talk about affordable housing, when we talk about opportunities to just build a better community and have better conversations, I think that's how we keep people here, right? And let's have conversations with people like Matt and Tim, and I'm sure there's many others, to figure out how to build more of that presence and that power for Charlotte from a creative standpoint. I've been around the arts my whole life. That was influenced by my dad. I just told somebody the other day, I don't talk about it much, but I did a lot of drama when I was I'm dramatic, but I did a lot of drama when I was young. So I've done a lot of musical plays. I can't sing for anything, but I was in musicals and plays and love being on stage. So that world's important to me. So thank you for the question.
All right, we have Dr. Blanche Penn and Ms. Darnell.
Good morning. So if I'm understanding it right, you're representing all the districts as you're running.
100%.
Okay, so if you're representing all the districts, so and there's so many at-large candidates that's running, so how will you make sure that community can actually see what you're doing for us? And what does real transparency mean and look like to you beyond just saying the words?
Blanche, I appreciate your point on transparency, because I do think, let me just speak to that for a second. I think we say a lot of things in politics. We say transparency. I talked a little bit about empathy already. We say accountability. We say all these buzzwords, right? I don't really like saying buzzwords. If I start a sentence, I like to make fun of people sometimes that I've interacted with, and they say, "Let me be honest with you. What was the other option? Why do you have to start with that?" So that is who I am. That is what I want to do. Is I think I don't want to spend a lot of time explaining transparency, because I don't really think any other way. I think we have to be healthy about how we have internal discussions, how we talk about our needs as a community, as a city. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, Blanche. I don't know if you were here at this point, but I had my goal as an at-large member is to be present long after this election is over, right? So I want to have a town hall every single month across all 7 districts, and keep those rotating. So you're talking, if we're doing math real quick, I'm not the smartest, but I think I'm gonna hit 5 districts twice a year. And then we'll keep rotating through the next year. So, I wanna say, hey, this is where I'm gonna be, we're moving around, we're picking different locations, we're picking your favorite spot in your neighborhood, but we gotta get people out too. That's the other thing for us. A lot of times when I talk about going out, I hear other current council members say, well, nobody shows up. I want a room like this every time, this is awesome. So those are the kind of things that I wanna do to have better conversations and just be a voice for all the people. That's all I know to do, is to make sure that I'm holding myself accountable, and making sure that I'm showing up.
All right, we have Ms. Darnell, Ms. Laura McCletty, Ms. Jackie Edwards Walton, then we're back to Gary J. Hill, and, yeah.
Mr. Britt, I'm over here. Oh, hello. Hi, how are you? Darnell, I'm a retired educator, and you.
Bless you, thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you. You addressed some of the things, but I wrote it, framed it, so I'm going to ask it in terms of education, housing, transportation, youth, the safety of our city. How will your leadership impact these areas in a positive, proactive way to effect progressive change?
And did you put world peace on the list, Darnell, or was that where? I appreciate the question, and for me, Darnell, I've mentioned it a few times. There's so many details there. For me, it is about partnership. It's about partnership. It's about the art of the possible. We talk about affordable housing, right? That's one of the big issues that we talk about a lot. I like to mention when we talk about affordable housing, economic mobility, economic growth, because how do we kind of meet in the middle as opposed to just acting like, who in here would like to see the value of their home go down? Raise your hand. Right? So like nobody's gonna raise their hand for that, right? So I think that is the challenge as we talk about how we move forward. But I had a great conversation with Mark Jarrell, who I find to be amazing. And he actually said to me, he was one of the people, in this process, you're trying to learn and you're saying, hey, let's get coffee, hey, we talked to me, hey, will you connect with me? And Mark came up to me after the BPC forum and said, I'd love to get coffee with you. And I said, what? You're asking me to get coffee? So we had a great conversation, and as I talked about the art of the possible, he said, hey, I love that. He said, I love that, but I got an example for you. He talked about his Homes Act. So the Homes Act is something that he championed to provide assistance for property tax burden, right? How do we minimize the property tax burden for people who struggle to pay those as all of our property taxes keep going up? How do we find a way to do that? And he was initially told that's not something we can do. There's no way to do that. It's in place now. So you gotta have the right attitude to solve the problems that are in front of us. So whether that's affordable housing, whether that's transportation, as we've talked about with this transit tax, we've all acknowledged there will be challenges. There's challenges in anything. I love the notion I had on transportation tax. Somebody said, we were in a group and somebody said something about, well, it's not what I would do. And I just had to say, nothing against them, that's a good point, fair, it's not what you would do. Raise your hand if you get to set policy by yourself in anything you do, right? It's very, very rare. Maybe a couple of entrepreneurs get to set a policy for their own business, but that's not how this works. Government is about compromise. It's about connection. It's about partnering and figuring out the best option given everybody's needs. So that's where this transit tax comes from. I don't like it. I don't like it when we talk about it's better than nothing. No, that's like saying that the last election was the lesser of two evils. No, it's not. There's an evil and then there's something better, right? So I don't want to talk about the lesser of two evils because that's not what we're dealing with. So that's how I think about it. Again, there's all the things I appreciate education. I've had a couple of conversations. Obviously, I talked about Smart Start. It's a passion of mine. I got tons of educators in my family. I actually taught briefly at Davidson-Davie Community College virtually. So I've done some myself. So I think we need to find ways to address all of those things, Darnell, and I appreciate you asking the question.
All right, we have Ms. Laura McCletty.
Hi, I'm Laura McCletty, and thanks for coming.
Of course.
My question, you just touched on it, talking about Mark. As you run for this office, and we have all of these at-large people that are running, can you share with us just information that you know, or how you feel about some of those that are already serving at large, and how do you plan to work with those like Mark that you admire?
I mean, I can work with anybody, just to be clear. I don't have to work with people I admire. I know how to disagree without being disagreeable, and that's a lost art in our society. So let me make that clear from the jump. Laura, I appreciate your question. I have chosen very intentionally not to speak badly of those that are currently serving. I have respect for people who serve. Going through this process, I haven't served yet. I did serve in that Smart Start role. Like I said, has some government connection and put me in a place where I had a lot of pressured eyes on me and people asking me, why did we make this decision or why do we do this? And so I understand some of that. But at the same time, I'll acknowledge, hey, it's all in the paper. If y'all know how to Google something, you can look and see what the challenges are. I'm not discounting those things that have happened. There's a reason why I run into people and they say, we just need to hold a council. I'm not advocating for that. I'm not saying that everyone up there needs to go. But there's a reason why those things are happening, right? These aren't just made up. There's real issues. There's real concerns. I have a good sense of people, right? I have a perception of what I've seen in this brief amount of time. Maybe I'm not giving some people enough of a chance. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, Laura, I think that what I bring is something better, right? So I talk a lot about, I've mentioned a couple of times, having respect for that group and that they're doing just fine for Charlotte. But I think we deserve more than just fine. I know what Charlotte can be. I can see it in my head. It's about, my dad always talked about, and I was just listening to him I just miss his voice. He died in 2015, and I swear I'd give my left and right leg to have him here watching me do this. Sorry, I don't mean to be emotional, but I listened to him talk so many times about this quote that he used for his school, and it was about the kids and the parents dealing with these disabilities and trying to find their way through. And he talked about this quote. Basically, I'm not gonna give you the whole thing. He would. I'll play it for you later. But he said the least you can do in this life is figure out what it is you hope for, and the most you can do is to live inside that hope, not just admire it from a distance, but live inside it. Walk down its halls, touch the walls on both sides, right? And I think what we can do as a council is help Charlotte figure out through conversation, through interaction, through engagement, through partnership, what it is we can hope for. And then we can live inside that hope and we can move forward with making Charlotte the Charlotte that you deserve. Thank you.
All right, we have Ms. Jackie.
Good morning. I don't know if someone's already asked a question about where you came from to bring you to where you are now, and if they have,
yes.
Then my question then would be selecting a police chief from the ranks or bringing in someone new. You already answered the first question.
I did. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to kind of where I'm coming from. Maybe just to add that I have a beautiful wife that I've been married to for 20 years and two awesome daughters. I've got one that just went off to Virginia Tech. Sorry, she left Charlotte. I think it was Samir that gave me a hard time about her. Actually, now that I remember it, her not going to UNCC. But she does want to do environmental studies, and I was excited that she wanted to go to Virginia Tech and that she got in there. So she just started a couple of weeks ago, so we're dealing with that. And I've got my younger daughter who's 14, she'll be 15 in October, just started at Providence High School. That's a whole different ball of wax. Anybody having 14-year-old daughters, give me some pointers after, I'd appreciate it. So maybe just to give you that context. And then as we talk about the, forgive me, Jackie, articulate that question real quick about the police chief one more time. I just missed the detail of what piece of it you wanted to know.
Selecting someone.
Oh, right. Yes, thank you. So it's a really interesting question, and I had a cool experience with this recently. Our last South Charlotte Partners Breakfast Club, we had the opportunity to bring in Dr. Crystal Hill and hear a presentation from her on what was going on. This is superintendent, if you don't know, of CMS schools. And she was, number one, she was amazing. I thought she was amazing. And certainly, maybe she's a marketer. I don't know, maybe she's telling the truth, but the way she framed everything, it felt like CMS was moving in a great direction. There was a lot of good conversation, there was a lot of good questions. There were a couple of school board members there to kind of help answer questions. And one of the things that I found so interesting, Jackie, was that she was kind of shunned commodity. She was someone who, she says, I was in, I don't remember where she was exactly, I was in Cabarrus. I know she spent some time in Forsyth County Schools, Forsyth County Schools. And she said, hey, I got to this point where I needed to do this, and nobody wanted me. I applied to a bunch of jobs and nobody called, right? I've been there, maybe all y'all have. Sorry, I should acknowledge that Stephanie's in the room, but hello. And I thought, just hearing her say, they gave me this chance to be chief of staff. The person that was in the superintendent role left. They gave me a chance to be interim. And then the school board chose me to be that person. I just thought there was something so powerful in that. Like, I think we always go like, hey, who are the, let me go to the Carolina Panthers, who are the best coaches available? Canales is a great example, right? Who are the best coaches available? There's this long list. And I don't remember many people mentioning Dave Canales. And then jury's still out, maybe you find somebody amazing like that. So I think I don't want to commit to one way or another, Jackie, of course, but I think there is some value in understanding what institutional knowledge is there and what people are on the bench that we haven't paid attention to yet, right? That we haven't really caught on to. How do you do that? How do you survey the current police force? How do you get an understanding of who they respect? Who are they willing to follow into battle or follow orders from that we haven't thought about for police chief? Who's ready to step up to the challenge, as it feels like Dr. Hill was and has, that may not be expected, as opposed to, as somebody told me recently about I think the woman that was in Forsyth County actually they're going through, I don't know if y'all know, but they're going through hell in Forsyth County with budgets and so forth. The woman lived in Florida. She lived in Florida and she commuted back and forth, and Forsyth County paid for her travel and her hotels while she was in Winston doing the job. That seems crazy to me. Like, why? Like, that seems like a really important job to have somebody who's local and has knowledge. So I just think, whether that's somebody coming from the outside and we found the perfect candidate and they move to Charlotte and make it their home, or if it's somebody, to your point, Jackie, who's on the force now and is the right candidate. I want to look at all those options.
All right, Mr. Britt, this is where we reduce our time in responding to questions. We got to bring it down to a minute. We have Ms. Laura in the back, then we have Brandon, then we're going to go with Gary and Jay Hill.
Okay.
Natalie, you got me. You got me.
All right. The state is failing our public schools. North Carolina ranks 48th in per pupil spending. That means every kid in the city we spend $5,000 less than the national average. Not the top, the average. We also know that our teachers are underpaid. They can't even afford to live in Charlotte. So schools are now facing the loss of federal funds in addition to too little state funding. This county has stepped up. They even raised taxes to help find a modest supplement to the very low pay. You mentioned the city council. I haven't seen the city council mention the word schools or do one thing in the 8 years I have lived here. You mentioned it earlier. What will you do?
Forgive me, tell me your name one more time.
Laura.
Thank you, Laura. I thought that was right. I just want to make sure.
There are a lot of Lauras.
I was like, I thought I already had
We
Laura.
rule.
Laura's rule. Laura, I appreciate the question, and I do, I talked in one of my first forums. I'm going to talk about pre-K a little bit again. That's where some of my experience is, but I mentioned in my first forum ever that I had this experience with Smart Start NC Pre-K, and this woman stood up at the end and said, I have a question about that, for early childhood educators, how we help their pay. And I said, I'd love to, I didn't realize we could affect that. I know it's a school board thing, it's a county thing, like how do you find those? And I said, that's cool. I would love to kind of get into that and dive deeper and find a way to help. And somebody came up to me, current council person came up to me after and said, that was a trap. Y'all can't do it. We can't do anything for schools. That's not what we do. That's not what we do. And that's kind of where I kind of got inspired by the art of the possible, because I had 2 conversations after that where people said, no, there are things we can do. There are ways we can help. So I absolutely want to look into that. It is something that is important to me and a passion to me. And we can talk more about, specifics, but I do think kind of similar to some of the things we talked about earlier, I think it's an opportunity to get in and understand the challenges, understand where the opportunities are, and then execute. So I believe I can do that.
We got a question from Brandon.
All right, Thank you for
Hey, Brandon.
coming, Matt. Great seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you.
So one of the things I noticed since I moved to Charlotte a little over 3 years ago is
I remember us talking.
one of the things I've seen in Charlotte, I've kind of observed since moving to Charlotte 3 years ago, is lower voter turnout. So my question to you, how do you propose to expand civic engagement and participation, especially among our younger generations, to stay informed and drive and sustain change beyond getting to the polls and vote? Because I feel like the real work is done after the vote. How do we work with leaders such as yourself if you were to be elected?
100%. Yeah. No, I love that question, Brandon. And again, a little like world peace. I don't know if I can solve it today, but I do think the voter turnout thing, the engagement, we talked about that with just showing up to meetings like this, right? So if I'm going to have town halls and I start showing up every month, which I think is a part of the answer to your question, if I'm having a town hall, let's have a town hall at a high school, right? Let's have a town hall at a high school in one of the districts as I'm moving around. I want to spread that wealth of engagement across every walk of life that I can find. How do we connect more with? I love connecting with young people and helping, just hearing their challenges and hearing what they're struggling with. So I think voter turnout is a huge issue. I think we have a lot of great organizations trying to help with people like Monifa Drayton that I've interacted with, who was amazing. I know there's so many other organizations that are doing great work in this community to try and get voters to turn out. I think we also have to reinstill some confidence in government in general, right? How do we show the world of Charlotte and maybe the world at large, there's a pun there, the world at large, who we can be and how we can be better. And maybe that helps people connect a little bit better. So, I want to be out there, I want to be engaged. I think that's the best I can do at this point, is just understanding who those groups are and how we can affect them and how we can make it better.
All right. In your support of the transit plan, what are some of your ideas for approaches on how to combat the displacement that has continuously and will occur as long as council stays status quo? I was on a Leading on Opportunity sponsored call this past Friday about, say, the transit plan. And a lot of the questions and discussions centered around east side residents upset because they can't access the airports and bike lanes, and which the latter we know typically is synonymous with gentrification.
Right.
So what are your ideas to combat that displacement? And affordable is only a relative term. So
right.
Going down that lane, what are your ideas?
Yeah, I think that is going to be a huge piece of the transit tax. When I talk about concerns, I think that's a concern in any bill, right? I keep thinking about the Affordable Care Act in this process and how it was implemented and how it was pulled together by Obama and his team and how they kind of worked through that process and made sacrifices and took heat, right? Lost the House, right? That was a hard thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. So as we think about this, we need to make sure the Transit Board Authority is appointed correctly. We need to have people, I had a great conversation with maybe even a couple people in this room about having contrarians on the Transit Board Authority, somebody like J.G. Lockhart, like let's have him show up and be part of it if he doesn't get through this primary, right? To help balance that and understand where the opportunities are. We need to be focused on where displacement is happening, and then we need to be able to address it with additional funding or vouchers or things that can help people. We also need to be very intentional with the execution of it. How do we think about these things and minimize the displacement when we can? I think if we've got our eyes on the ball, we have opportunities to do better throughout the process than potentially what people have seen in the past. And it will be about conversations, it will be about partnership, it will be about the art of the possible.
Hey Matt, Jay Hill again.
Of course.
So I get the sense from current city council members that there's a difference between campaigning and governance, and that there's this inflection point with folks who are new to government or who decide to run for election, that they're on fire, and then when they get into office, they fall in line. What would you do to avoid falling into that same situation where you have to go along to get along and to hold your seat and things of that nature?
Well, let's be clear. I don't like to think about holding a seat the way that you articulated that, right? Like I want to be careful. I've thought a lot about this in this process of, and forgive me, occasionally in my campaign I will address a comic book movie. I don't know if anybody watches comic book movies. But in Batman Begins they talk about you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right? And I think there's something powerful to that in politics, right? It's not about not staying in politics. You can be in politics for a long time, but I don't want to go into this thinking that I'm your city council at large rep for the next 30 years. That's unhealthy, right? That's not how, and again, I'm exaggerating a little bit. We can talk about 10 years, we can talk about 8 years, we can talk about 11 years, 12 years, whatever. I think that we get a little stagnant. I see it in corporations. We had the discussion about corporations early. In my corporate experience, I see people too often that have been at the same business for 30 years, and they say, we can't do that because we tried it 10 years ago and it didn't work. Well, it's 10 years later. We do things differently. The world has changed, right? So I think there's something unhealthy to kind of being stagnant. So I want to go in and maintain the energy as best as possible. Jay, I want to acknowledge, at the end of the day, I'm one of 11, right? So all I can do is take responsibility for my actions and how I engage with other people and how I partnership and how I encourage, and I've done that in corporations, right? I've created better cultures or for the people around me because my energy is positive, right? I bring that to the table, and I think that's important. So as we think about doing that, I think those are my goals is how do you go in, partner with the city staff? Oh my God, how important are they, right? Like how do we make sure they're respected and heard, but also challenged? Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, Mr. Britt, we have a question from an online viewer.
Oh, there we go.
Arlethea.
Coming to you live.
Coming to you live indeed. Here we go. What are your deficits in terms of ability to be successful as an at-large city council member? From day one, what are you doing or what will you do to overcome these challenges?
I think that's a really good question. Gosh. So two things that come immediately to mind in 1 minute. Tell me a little bit about yourself in 20 seconds. Two things come to mind. Number one, I am a full-time employee of a major corporation here in Charlotte, right? And we're excited about what we do. We're innovative. We're doing really important things. I have to balance that, right? I think it brings something positive. We talked about that earlier. I think the corporate experience means something, the connection to a job, that I don't depend on city council as my only function, right? That there's something else I'm doing in my day job. So I think that'll be something to address and work through, but I'm confident that we can make it happen. The other piece is just knowledge. But I tell you what, I mean, if I look at the last 6 weeks of conversations and learnings and research and understanding, I understand the transit tax more than people that serve currently. I've seen it in person. So those are the kind of things that I know I'm capable of, and I know I can address them. But that deficit will be a challenge. That knowledge and just gaining that as quickly as possible to get up to speed.
Thank you. Now we have Ayo.
Good morning. I was actually listening on my way here, and you alluded to earlier about, you know, the current situation of council being a little contentious, and politics can be stressful. I'm Executive Director of Mental Health America. How would you safeguard your own personal mental health if we're affected?
You know what, I think that's an awesome question. I love that, because mental health we talk about so much, and I believe it wholeheartedly being in healthcare anyway, right? That's my day job, and I've seen it in myself. I gotta be honest, right? Like I know my mom, like I talked earlier about her and like her challenges with mental health because of the stress of the burden of the goals for her life that are so hard to achieve, world peace, as a joke. But I appreciate that point. I think for me, one of the things that comes to mind instantly is the notion that if you give a little bit of your ethics, it can all fall apart, right? So if I can rest on who I am and be confident in that and be okay, Jay, if I don't get reelected, be okay to make a hard decision because it's the right decision, and I communicate it as best I can because I happen to be in marketing, right? Like I share the message the right way and make sure people are hearing what I'm doing. Now that's awesome. I'm sorry, I just noticed that.
Unlimited time.
Yeah, unlimited time, here we go. So I think for me, that is how I think about it. It's like, how do you stay positive and focused on what it is you can hope for and live inside that hope and be confident that what I'm doing every day is in pursuit of that. And I think if I can do that and balance that activity and the partnerships and I gotta be honest, I've served on boards where I've come in and South Charlotte Partners is honestly a great example we weren't functioning well. And it was hard. It was hard for the first year. And I gotta be honest, we're rocking and rolling. Like, we feel great about where we're at and how we're moving forward as an organization. And I know I'm a part of that. I'm not the only part, but I know I'm a part of how we move that forward. So finding a way to function better, partner better, and trust in others, I think is the best way to keep that mental health up. But I'll count on you to look out for me too.
Matt, I have a question based on your career expertise. As we look at the festivals and things that happen on Tryon Street, Pride Festival,
Love and Life, Labor Day.
Love and Life. We see a lot of corporate and civic engagement with the larger elements of things that are happening in Charlotte. However, when it comes to those more niche community-centric festivals and engagement, you don't see as much interaction or engagement from the big names. If you are elected to council, how would you approach making everyone feel like they're part of the growth? How would you engage those smaller community showings and festivals and creative? Yeah, I'm the moderator. What are you back to? Well, how would you engage?
Natalie's hard.
How would you engage those smaller, more niche community festivals?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think it's an opportunity, as I've kind of talked about and alluded to before, about making sure that everybody's heard, everybody feels important, everybody feels a part of the discussion here in Charlotte, and what we're doing. I think your point about corporations is important. As someone in marketing and in that world where we invest in these sponsorships, it's a little bit of a business decision, right? So hey, where do we get the most impact for our dollars and our time and our support? But the other piece of that is, and I appreciate this a little bit more, we're struggling with it as we grow, is how do we make sure we're still present in our local communities, right? So we have to figure out how to empower Atrium Health Anson or Atrium Health Union West and the great leader there, Sept, who I'm close with, right? Alicia Campbell at Pineville, Asha Rodriguez at Cabarrus. How do we engage? I'm using him as an example with our world to say, hey, how do we make better connections with corporations to empower them to invest in that local community and those local festivals that you're talking about? I'm confident we can do that. It's just about being aware. We have to be aware of everyone in this community. We can't focus on Center City. We can't focus on the west side. We can't focus on the east side. We have to focus on all of it, and I'm prepared to do that.
All right, I thought we had a question somewhere. All right, Samir, come on. I like the initiative. Samir has a question.
Candidate for mayor, and I want Samir to tell me how many signatures he's got so far. What's your update?
10 more from since last week.
There you go.
But we got a couple thousand. We're probably about 7,000 short right now. My name is Samir Mead. I'm running for mayor as an unaffiliated candidate here in Charlotte. I'm all about Charlotte. I'm born and raised here, but anytime I open my timeline, I just see people in Palestine being slaughtered. My question for you, as a city council member, what would you do to make sure that the Palestinian community in Charlotte feels heard, and do you stand with Palestine?
Wow. Thank you for the question, Samir. I actually had a similar, I met with the Muslim Political Caucus just recently, and they asked a similar question. I don't want to pretend to even try and understand all the issues that are going on in Palestine and Israel and all that kind of stuff. I've looked at it. It's so burdensome. I've listened to people talk about how people think they know, right? People think they know the last 100 years. It's 500 years. It's 700 years. It's a long time of trying. What was that?
77 years.
It goes back a lot further than that, as I understand it. But we can talk more about that. I appreciate the question. I don't know that I have a firm answer in this moment related to that, to the challenge. For me, it's about making sure people are heard, making sure that people understand, and their voices are heard, and that I can be an advocate for that and make sure there's some kind of agreement and understanding. I know there's some discussion about, the discussion we had in that one call was about how there had been a statement for one side of it from the city council, and there was a request to make a statement to the other side of it, and that had not been supported. I want to have those conversations and understand all the challenges better. I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, I'll do whatever you say. Yeah, sure, I'll stand on Palestine or whatever. Like, I want to make sure I understand it fully before I make a statement like that. But I do, at the end of the day, I think it's important for the city of Charlotte to be aware of these issues, but I think we need to spend more time focused on what we're doing here in this city for our citizens as a whole.
All right, Mr. Britt, go ahead and take a minute to give your closing thoughts.
I appreciate this time with y'all so much. I feel a little selfish being up here by myself, particularly with Nemrata and Kimberly being in the room, two great candidates as well for running for city council. But I can't tell you how excited and energized and tired I am from this process at the same time, right? Like it's an amazing process to go through. It's been so powerful. I went and canvassed yesterday with a friend, happens to be gay, that I've made a relationship with, and he said, come to my neighborhood and we'll canvass. And I knocked on one door, and this gentleman opened the door, black gentleman, good looking guy, whatever. And I said, hi, I'm Matt Britt, I'm running for Charlotte City Council. He said, stop. He said, I know who you are. I just saw you on TV, and I saw the Observer say that you had a grasp of all the issues. You already got my vote, and I'm the precinct chair, Eric Davis, for precinct 107, might be 105, sorry, I forgot the number, but I teared up. Like, I was like, that's amazing. Like, I can't tell you anymore. I'm out there, I'm doing this, I'm making connections. See what I can do in 2 years. I'm Matt Britt, and I'm running for Charlotte City Council at large, and I appreciate y'all having me today.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. City Council candidate at large, Matt Britt. We will, before we go into announcements, I would like to acknowledge city servants, Mr. Monty Witherspoon, Ms. Stephanie Sneed, school board members, and that's it, our elected officials. Also, we will not meet again. We will not meet next Tuesday. This is the last week for early voting. Next week is the election, so the primary, and we will not meet next week. Any announcements? 1, 2, 3. All right, here you go, runner. I tell you what, I'll start. On Saturday, September 20th, as I said last week, the greatest festival on earth, voted by all the cool people in your group chat. A Vibe Called Fresh, Mashup Madness is next week, and I have the premiere of the championship belt that will be awarded to the champion DJ. If you're not familiar with mashups, ladies and gentlemen, what would Anita Baker's vocals sound like with Sade's beats? That's a mashup. And we have 3 themes. One theme is genre, one theme is time, and the last theme is freedom. What can you do with a 10-minute set? For the championship, again, look at it. The West Side World Champion, because West Side shakes the world. And this is, again, up for grabs on Saturday, September 20th, at West Complex at a Vibe Called Fresh. Thank you, I hope you join us. It is absolutely free to attend. All right. Thank you, Dr. Thomas, you made it so elegant. Next announcement.
Follow that. Okay, so we talked a lot about schools today. Mike. I like that, yeah. Is it on now? Okay, yes. Hi. So we talked a lot about schools today. So y'all know I work for the North Carolina Association of Educators. We are putting on a big event on October 11th to bring parents and community members together to learn more about the state of our public schools and also how they can advocate for public schools and for their children. That's going to be at CPCC from 9 to 3. I'm going to send our link out and everything, but yeah, y'all should pull through.
Hi, I'm Laura Cooper. I'm one of the co-chairs of the League of Women Voters Education Action Team. And I brought today some copies of a document called the North Carolina Community Resolves for Fully Funded Public Education. I talked earlier about my real concern about what's happening to the kids in our schools today, and I tutor, so I see it. I know, and I know these kids need some support, and they need it K through 12, not for 6 months in kindergarten. And they're great minds. These are great kids. They deserve it. To help them, please pick up a copy, use the QR code. First, read the document. It will tell you all about what's going on, where we rank, how terrible it is, and it gets more terrible every year that I've lived here. And that's only 8 years. It's criminal. Please consider signing the document. We ask you for an email. The league will not use your email. We won't even ask you for money for ourselves, let alone share it with anybody else. Please sign it. We need at least 1,000 signatures, and then we're gonna take it with a bunch of other local leaders. And any of you who would like to join us, who feel passionate about this, we'll be in Raleigh when the North Carolina General Assembly reconvenes, which seems to be unreliable, but at the moment we think it's September 22nd. We still don't even have a state budget for this year. So they need to know we're paying attention, and this is one way to do it. Please take a copy. I'll answer any question you have about what's going on. And Mr. Witherspoon and certainly Ms. Sneed can answer even more. Thank you.
Early voting has started. It ends on Saturday. It's Democratic primaries, it's primary elections, and this is what matters because after the primaries are over, a lot of the races will be uncontested. So if you want your vote to count, vote now and spread the word.
All right, good morning. For those of you that are, which I know everyone in this room pays attention to our performance of our schools, September 3rd at 1:30 is the media briefing about last school year's performance. I'm excited, and so should you be. And so please tune in to all the progress that we've made in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. That will be announced on September 3rd at 1:30.
Is it online or in person?
It should be streaming, but I'll make sure I ask that question.
Tomorrow, right?
That is tomorrow. Yes. Not because today.
Okay.
Yes, that'll be tomorrow at 1:30.
Okay.
Yes.
Good morning again. September 10th is World Suicide Prevention Day, and Mental Health America, we are hosting a free virtual QPR suicide prevention gatekeeper training on that day from 10 to 11:30 a.m. But prior to that, we are also hosting on Tuesday, September 9th, a new training, also free, also virtual, how to talk about mental health and suicide workshop. It's only 1 hour. We are losing our kids in this state at an alarming rate. The number 1 or number 2 leading cause of death in our youth from ages 10 to 24 in the last 5 years has been suicide. We have a youth mental health crisis. We need to learn how to talk about it. Please consider taking one of those 2 free online trainings. You can go to mhaofcc.org to register.
Today is the 8th day of early voting. 947 persons have voted.
Wow.
947 persons have voted. The next speakers that we have are on the 16th. That would be school board district candidates 1 and 6. The following on 9/23 will be districts 2, 4, and 5. So we'll see you back on the 16th.
Okay, I'm Darnell. I just wanted to say maybe to the candidates, I live in District 2, Billville Smallwood. We're having on this coming Saturday, it's called Savory Saturday from 9 until 11 at that 5 Points area there where Mechanics and Farmers Bank is. So if there's something you want to talk about or tell about or share with the community, please come. Food is free. There are usually biscuits or burritos, coffee, juice. And if you get there early, you can get a Krispy Kreme donut.
Which costs like $2 now.
Yeah. Any more announcements?
Winston, where did Krispy Kreme start?
Winston-Salem.
Thank you, Brian.
That's right. If you want Krispy Kreme cigarettes or hot sauce, Winston-Salem is your town. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do us. Thank you for joining us for another amazing Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum. Again, we will not meet next week. Thank you so much for joining us. You looking at me like I'm missing something. Oh, okay. Thank you for coming out. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Also, I'm sorry. Thank you for the donations to the coffee pot. Thank you for, again, we are a standalone. We're not affiliated with anything. We're not a 501c3 with funders or a board. We rely on your coffee donations. Thank you for that. Excuse me. Dr. Thomas, play us out.
Oh my God.